No, not that, you stupid. The thing. Yeah. You guys didn't read it? Okay. 3, 2, 1. Hi, guys. We are... we'll find out who we are. I'll let Nicole start.
All right. Yeah, before we begin, you should probably know who we are. Starting with...
Hello. That one's me over there. I'm Ethan. I also go by Brogle. I was with this GADIG organization, which we all are, from fall of 2020 up through spring of 2024. So I started working on the design team and eventually turned into a game director for the little gorilla grind up there in the corner. And then went over into leading the narrative team. I am also part of the little indie studio Standing Cat. So Necromancer of Nowhere. That was a game. It was a thank you. Oh my god. So this is my second time doing some sort of interacting with MAGFest, as I tabled Necromancer of Nowhere there last year in MIVS. So if you were here a year ago, you might have seen our little Necromancer cat. And that's me.
Hi, so that one's me. I'm Xavier. I also go by Forte XP, and I was the assistant sound director at GADIG. I was a member of GADIG for every single semester. I was at George Mason University, fall 2020 to spring 2024, alongside Ethan. And I also worked on Necromancer of Nowhere as the audio person, so that's my perspective.
Hi, that's me. After a 1 hour and 10-minute game of League of Legends, which I was very happy to win. Anyways, I'm Khalid. I'm the current president of GADIG. If you've been to George Mason for literally anything, you've probably seen me. And I'm also one of the committee members for the Virginia Intercollegiate Game Jam, which is coming up soon. But yeah, my first game was Princess Starshine, along with some of these beautiful people with me. And I've worked all the way until our new game coming out called Deadshot.
And when does that game come out?
You'll find out.
Okay.
So my name is Julie. I also go by Redberry Weo. I'm a published author, and I have a small YouTube channel. I had to take all the videos down recently, but I do have a YouTube channel, and then I've also done a bunch of indie games. I was the lead for a project celebrating the 10th anniversary of Game Theory, and I worked as a government contractor for about 4 years until Doge came. So, so we're seeing how things are going to turn out moving forward. But I was the president for GADIG from the fall of 2019 to the spring of 2020, and I also served as the assistant sound director prior to doing that.
And I'm Nicole. I'm an artist, game composer, and game programmer. I've made all of these games, and I'm currently working on these games. That's a shame, isn't it? Anyway, you may also know me for my music, my open source projects, my out of bounds projects, helping organize the Senior Game Expo at George Mason, but in all likelihood, if you know me for anything, it is probably my Friday Night Funkin' tutorials from 3 years ago. While I never acted as an officer at GADIG, I did contribute greatly to these 5 games as either an artist or a composer. And with all our introductions out of the way, here's some spoilers, just so you guys know what to expect from this. This should run for around 40 minutes, and we'll have maybe 20 minutes at the end for a Q&A. That leads to our first question. What is GADIG?
So before we start, GADIG is our student org at GMU, but I do want you guys to take away from this that this type of community can be built literally anywhere. And we'll cover some more specifics later, but I do want you to keep this in mind as we go through the presentation.
But really, who is GADIG? Well, we are the Game Analysis Design Interest Group, but that's kind of a misnomer. We don't just analyze games, we make them. By combining the power of the art, design, sound, and programming teams, we've managed to make a new game every semester. Here's a few of those games: Gorilla Grind, Princess Starshine, Fruit Punch, Fetch Quest, Bake Me Crazy, and...
our brand new game coming out, it's Sunday, right? Saturday?
Today's Saturday.
Next week on Wednesday called Deadshot. Yeah, that'll be out soon, and all of our games can be found on our itch page. If you just look up GADIG itch, you'll get some really bad results, so look up itch.io GADIG instead. But yeah. Oh yeah, all of our games are also free, and they're playable on web as well as almost every OS.
And if you happen to play those games, you'll notice that all of them are pretty different from each other. Additionally, all of our games were pitched and voted for by various members of our club. Speaking of members, the number of members who help us make games every semester just keeps growing and growing.
Yeah, like we started with just a couple dudes in a room playing video games together, and this semester for our latest game, we had 194 people in the credits, which was really awesome.
However, inevitably, these guys can't stay with us forever. They do gotta graduate eventually and move on to other things. But, it's not all bad news, because those graduates get up to some pretty interesting stuff, like joining up with big-name game studios or creating game studios of their very own.
So this is the second Necromancer mentioned in this presentation. So yeah, Standing Cat is the studio that created Necromancer of Nowhere, and it formed entirely of GADIG members. It was a studio built off of a studio, built off of students wanting to make video games. And we're going to be talking about how you can do that.
All of that begs the question, what role does GADIG play in its student success? In other words, why would you start an org like this?
So, raise your hand if you've made a game before, in any capacity.
Well, that's
So
a
you
lot of
guys
people.
all must know that it's really hard, especially to do alone. Having a community where you can meet a lot of people like learning, such as yourself, you'll meet people that know a lot already that you can look up to from mentors. But most importantly, it works as a kind of motivation rather than being seen as a project. It could be like, hey, I'm hanging out with my friends and making something cool, which at the end of the day, that's all we really want to do as people. But yeah.
And I gotta add some stuff to that too. I personally think the big benefit of GADIG is that it's a place to not only nurture your skills as a game developer, but also nurture your friendships and relationships. When I moved up to Fairfax to go to GMU, I didn't know anybody, and I had a lot of really those entry-level classes where you don't really meet anybody who has the same exact interests as you. But by joining this student organization, this studio run by students to make games, I met a lot of very like-minded people, and I thought that was super, super exciting. So for me, that's kind of what I got out of it and why I think people should start their own. So.
Thank you for bringing up classes, because that makes this segue a lot easier for me. So one of the big benefits of GADIG is that there's a tiny gap in the game design major. Now, at GMU, I like the game design major a lot. It gave me all the skills I need to make a game pretty quickly, but there's a small gap between having all the individual skills you need to make a game and being able to crank out an entire game by yourself, or alternatively, leading 30 to 40 plus people to crunch out a game within a semester. You can see it, right? There's some sort of skill gap there. Anything?
I'm going to share a little bit about how that gap was really filled in for you.
Yeah.
We'll go down the line.
Oh, go down the line? All right. So this gap was filled in for me because I actually started making games before I even went to university, but I felt like I was kind of just throwing stuff into the void, and what I really, really needed deep down was a group of people who I could get feedback from, and we could kind of grow together. So when all of a sudden I get to George Mason University and I was introduced to the student organization, I walk in and I suddenly went from game music composition and solo development as its own isolated world to I just joined a team of 20 people, and now everybody has that experience. So getting to learn alongside those people pushes you out of that area of just I can do it, and I am doing it, and I'm getting better, and I'm iterating each time.
Mm-hmm. A big part of GADIG for me that helps is kind of looking at that beginning. It starts from a very kind of either one major focus or quite a generalist. And I learned very quickly when I started getting into game development, I cannot program. I cannot program. Scratch, nothing more than that. So a big part of that was realizing that there is this community and being able to work collaboratively in a place where people have their niches, and everyone is still developing a lot of those niches coming in as a student. So I was just I like writing stuff, as long as it's not code. I like writing stuff. And there were gaps there where it's a little hard to make a game without coding it. So a lot of that was being able to collaborate with other students and be like, all right, I'm getting together. We have this group, and there's room for everyone to start putting in their little piece of the pie.
And there's a lot of soft skills you learn in like an organization like this. Before I even got to college, I had zero idea how to make a game, much less lead like this giant team of people who also didn't know how to make a game at first and are kind of learning. But that's just part of the process. So things like planning events, things like working through like interpersonal troubles between your members, and like a lot of other factors that you don't really notice or think about until you're actually in that position where it's like, we have this event coming, but everything failed. Everything is going wrong. We have to be there tomorrow. A lot of those skills can't really be learned. It's something that's done through experience, and that's something that GADIG's really helped me, pick up and learn.
One of the things that really helped me grow as a developer within being in GADIG was that I didn't really understand how source control worked and having different versions of projects. We just hadn't really learned that in the classes leading up to when I got involved with GADIG. So just knowing what GitHub is something that I did not know until I had joined GADIG. And so understanding how you can take the pieces that you create for a project and integrating it into everyone else's work was a really big lesson that I learned being in GADIG.
Awesome. Yeah, in short, GADIG fills in that gap, giving you an environment where you can create a game and learn how to collaborate with a bunch of other people without the pressure of grades or really even the expectation that you know anything at all. It gives you confidence in knowing that you've made a game and makes it easier for you to snowball, make you think about like developing your own games or trying out other facets of game design like art, sound, programming, or even directing and leading your own game project. Additionally, because interaction and cooperation are pretty much forced if you want to succeed in GADIG, you'll inevitably make a lot of friends along the way. Here's some stories about that.
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to my story that I told earlier, but actually, hi Ryan, this is about you a little bit. So Ryan was the person who introduced me to GADIG when I came to GMU. My first 2 semesters were online, and I had a lot of music classes, and through those online discussions with some friends, some mutual friends, Ryan had pointed me towards the student organization, and suddenly being there, I was like, wait, okay, so when I spent all that time in high school and middle school, just like in my little corner, like watching YouTubers remix like video game music, that wasn't just like a one-off thing. Like people write music and do covers all the time. So having a community that was like very like my interests were actually realized a little bit. That's my friend slot.
To share my friend slot. So through GADIG, I was part of the design team. And starting learning about game design as a student, the design is like always the most idealistic, coolest niche to work in. I get to be the guy who has ideas. I can tell people my ideas and then they make it. And everyone at some point starts wanting to be an ideas guy. You might know that the concept of an ideas guy doesn't really exist. So taking GADIG design team, which is about like 30 odd people. How many is it now?
A lot more.
Okay. So we'll say 50. Take 50 people who are all like, I want to be the one to have the ideas. GADIG is a great place to figure out, I need to do more than just have ideas. And there's a lot of ability there of actually starting to delegate. Like, I am good at narrative. We can just do a little bit of narrative stuff. I'm very much good more on the like technical side, like the mechanical side, like talking about like, this is how this interaction should work. And then, I could like add some like sparkle to the game, start putting in some like juice here. I was just like, I feel like kind of looking at this thing in practice, here is how I can expand it. This is the third mention. Part of my friend slop as well is actually through getting to meet all these people through the student organization. I formed my own game studio that has like an LLC now. And there are multiple people in this room who are in that game studio and a whole bunch more in the credits. So hi guys. And that's my friend slop.
All right, what slop do I have? Let me think.
So
So when I first came to Mason, I was the type of guy who would eat lunch in my car. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, one of the days I decided to sit in we have this building where there's a lot of posters and stuff, and everyone kind of hangs out. So I took the brave leap to go and eat lunch over there, and I remembered, distinctly remember, as I was walking away to the elevator where we have a bulletin board, Matthew over here, along with some other people, Maya Ocampo, Joshua Gaines, if you've met them. They also make games, and they've been here. But they were hanging up posters about the club, and it all kind of just snowballed from there. And I don't know, it's just been really awesome going from that experience of being really isolated to having this vibrant, growing community. And yeah, I don't think I would have that without GADIG.
And what was your first officer position?
My first office,
Just say the name of it.
social media manager.
And who was our first social media manager?
Me.
Yeah, so for me, I was a transfer student going to George Mason, so I came in during my sophomore year, and I found it to be a little bit isolating because everyone else was taking different classes at a different pace than I was. And so I went through my entire sophomore year only really socializing with people in class. I didn't talk to people outside of class. And so I was approached by the then president of GADIG during my junior year. He was like, "You should join GADIG." And I was like, "What? What is GADIG?" And he's like, "We make games." And I was like, I'm in. And so I only ended up being in GADIG for about 2 years, but it was a really pivotal experience for me to be able to feel far less isolated and just be able to connect with other people who were as passionate about it as I was outside of just the classroom.
That's pretty cool. I was wondering, could you tell me a little more about what GADIG was like back in the day?
Back in my day. So GADIG actually started in about 2011 timeframe where they were actually making games, and it was a smaller group of people who were in the game design major that wanted to make games outside of class, because who wants to make games for a grade all the time? Making games is fun, but being able to have a little bit more autonomy for the direction of the project is really nice. So over time, when I joined the organization, we were starting to grow. We had about 50 active members, and we had the different teams that we'd have now. We tried a proprietary game engine for a semester. When I was president, we were like, this is going to be a fantastic networking opportunity. We're going to be able to get people into the pipeline to become workers at this company. And boy, was it a really bad game engine. Also, not to mention the timing, because this was spring of 2020. And so, in March of 2020, I went on spring break, and I never came back to campus. And that's when we entered the next phase of GADIG and into what did you all describe it as?
It's the growth arc. It's the
growth arc?
the trajectory change.
Yes.
So when I got there in fall of 2020, that was online. That was pandemic was going crazy, and I show up and GADIG was less than 20 members. Right? We had gone from 60 members to 20.
Yeah, it was about 60 members.
And it was an interesting time to be developing games, because imagine a group project for class where you only meet online and you have to submit something by the end of the semester. It was like that. Getting in communication with people was very, very difficult. But as we continued working in that remote environment, that kind of set us up to be structured really well in the digital space. So when we came back in person, in 2021 fall? Something like that.
We started doing hybrid in 2021.
Yeah.
Where people could be online and could be in person. And that was its own interesting thing, because there are people sitting in a room like this, and then there's a guy on a Discord call who's like, I want to talk.
Yeah, so we had some growing pains with that stuff, but as we continued to kind of iterate on how we make games, something happened.
This is the arc. This is the something happening. They're talking about this right now, to be clear.
Yeah, so the pandemic was kind of a good thing in a way, not really. But for us, it was a good thing, where we really kind of set up the infrastructure, and we were ready to go once everybody came back. And then I became the president, and now we do a lot of things now. We do so many things.
A lot of things.
let me. Okay, like, this year we got a lot of funding from our college just so we can bring students here to network. Like, raise your hand if you're from GADIG.
Oh,
Whoa.
Yeah, so,
That's a
all
lot
these
of people.
point dexters in the front row.
but yeah, so it was really.
Hey guys, I appreciate your enthusiasm. If you have comments that you want to bring up, you may bring them up during the Q&A.
But yeah, so
We wanted to get through everything first.
It was really it was really the work of everybody who struggled through, like especially during Julie and Xavier and Ethan. I almost called you Douglas. Ethan's time. They did a lot of work to kind of set us up to grow from there, which was really awesome. And moving on from that, we kind of want to talk about like finding your community. So we're kind of going to delve into how can I make something like this for myself or the people around me or my group. We're going to be covering how to do it in universities, how to do it in high schools for those of you in high school, or if you don't have a space near you, an online community. So we can move on to the first one. So all you really need is, how many people are on there? I kind of want to say the exact amount. Yeah, like 3. You only need a couple people. And to really come up with a group like this, it takes a lot of effort. It's really worth it, but it does take a lot of effort. So one of the important things that you need to have is consistency, where you're all meeting together at a certain time. Next slide, please. Yeah, that a certain time. And part of consistency comes with these meetings, and one thing to always bring up is scope. That's why the picture's there. You know? But yeah, so a big problem I see with a lot of universities specifically, because we've been working with some other universities too, and they're still growing. And then it kind of reminds me of when I was still learning, and I was like thinking really big, which is always good. But practically, you need to break that big step into smaller steps. And some things you could do for that are like, you know, maybe instead of, hey, we can make a whole game this semester, you could do something like, we could make part of a game, like we could do a slice of game, we could do a game jam together. Whatever that might be, just having a consistent group and a consistent vision that you have together is awesome. And at a university, you have a lot of resources, such as a professor. This is Professor Dietrich. They're so awesome. Like I could talk about the stuff they do all day, and they're so nice. But yeah, using your university's resources, specifically as professors, which it could be if you guys have a game design major, you could hit up the teachers over there, or a CS major, or an art major, or a writing major department. It's kind of just like talking to them because they want to help you. They want to help you grow. And we have someone awesome like Professor Dietrich. I'm sure there's a lot more people like them out there, which is great.
And if you've been to MAGFest for a few years, you might have played one of Professor Dietrich's games on the MIBS floor.
True. And a lot of colleges have a lot of paperwork and logistics, and there's so much paperwork that we have to do. I'm gonna have to start doing that next week now that I think about it. Anyways, we'll keep it happy, not that. Wait, go back. So having set positions, specifically like a president role or a treasurer role, and then also having people to like assist them is really important. It kind of seems dumb when you have a few people, but as you scale up, having those required roles really helps you scale. Yeah. Now I kind of want to bring it to high school. So high school, oh wait, sorry, go back, my bad. I skipped a slide on my document. And a big thing of that is also outreach. It can literally be as simple as walking into a classroom, emailing a professor where it's like, hey, we kind of want to promote our club. We have a community of growing developers and people from all majors are welcome. So what you do is you walk in the classroom and you say, join my club. And it really is as simple as that. So it could be like a game development classroom. It could be like a CS class. But you can also reach out to a lot of other majors. You can have like an online social media where you tell people that you can join using all these different methods. And also, next slide. Go back one. Having other majors such as like English majors or biomedical or bioengineers, and our current treasurer is actually a business major, so we keep him there. But yeah, so reaching out to a bunch of other people other than your game department could be something that like I, for example, I'm a CS major. There's some overlap with that, but I know we had an English major as one of our officers, and we have some people studying film and music, whatever it might be. It's really important to keep an open mind and kind of reach out to everybody. But yeah, moving on to high school. Show of hands, is anyone here in education or in high school? Heck yeah. It's, you don't have to like shout it out, but do you guys have something about games like in your high school or kinda?
Like a couple game classes plus this game development club we're doing.
Oh, heck
Oh,
yeah.
awesome.
We also had someone in the back.
Oh, yeah, in the back as well.
You got something going on at your school? You think? Okay.
And honestly, that kind of segues well because I do feel like in high school, it is a bit harder to get a club together, mostly because a lot of people have other stuff going on, but more importantly, it's, you know, it's a lot of work on your end, especially my high school. What we had to do, there was so much paperwork in my college, in my high school. Oh my. Anyways, but jumping through those hoops is really easy because in high school, it's really easy to kind of just like talk to people and words. That's the next one, right? Oh. Oh, it's on here. Okay, yeah. But yeah, it's really important to do the same things where it's like you can go into your classrooms, other classrooms, and kind of talk about like, hey, we have this club. Or if you guys have like announcements in your high school, I know we did that. Our club showed up on there a couple times. And like same thing with college where you have teachers and the teachers want to help you. So finding an advisor or like finding a teacher that's just really passionate or likes making games to sponsor you is a very great help.
Do you have a question that's...
Yeah, go for it.
Back in my middle school, I had this one table that's full of like role-playing D&D tabletop nerds. And this one advisor walks by, it's like, oh, what you guys doing? Oh, we're playing D&D. And he goes, really? A month later, we have a club dedicated to tabletop games because we talked with them.
So for those of you who did not hear, there was mention of having a club in middle school because there were several students who were playing D&D actively, and then a teacher took interest in the students who were playing, and then they created a club soon after in about a month.
Yeah, it really is just talking to a lot of people because in high school, word spreads fast. But we're going to talk about if you don't really have a community like a university or a high school near you, what you could do.
So just to continue talking a little bit more about starting an organization, if you don't have solid documentation, then it becomes very challenging to keep everyone on the same page because you're starting small, but you'll continue to grow. And so by having documentation to ensure transparency between your team members, like GADIG has a constitution. So if a member acts up, then there is a set of actions that the organization can take as like progressive discipline to help make sure that that person either gets back on the train with everyone else or they're just no longer part of that organization anymore. Yeah. And like game design document and making sure mechanics are all lined up and ready to go. Having your art board that says this is the visual design of our game. So those are things that you need to take under consideration, especially when you're starting out, because the stronger your documentation is, then the more likely you are to have success down the line because you're setting up your people for success.
Yeah. Speaking of success, you may also find success in online communities if neither of the previous two options are available to you. Like, you can find entire communities dedicated to making games and doing game jams, like the ones that form around Game Maker's Toolkit's annual game jams. You can find out more about these game jams through itch.io and Jam Calendar. Inevitably, as you make more and more games, you'll find a little community along the way. Now, if you're too intimidated by the prospect of committing to a game jam, because to be fair, you are crunching out an entire game within a 48-hour period, that's a lot to ask of anyone, there are longer-term jams you can look out for. I'm actually doing one for the LSD jam due in March, so I've got some time to work on it. Now,
I also did want to shout out another jam. If you are in college, we have the Virginia Intercollegiate Jam coming up. So be on the lookout for that. It's mostly going to be an online jam. So if you do want to meet people online, and like it's just another resource to help find your community. Yeah.
Now, don't tell anyone I told you this, but you can actually get a lot of similar experiences out of game modding. You may have guessed this, but I actually got my start on game development through modding Friday Night Funkin'. Now, you can just treat major modding projects as like game projects in and of themselves, with the benefit that your scope is already sort of managed for you. Like, you have a minimum viable product that'll probably be functional, even if all your team members quit or everyone loses motivation and dies midway through. Like, the scope is inherently managed for you, and that is a very big advantage here. Additionally, you don't have to commit to these major projects to find a little community around game modding. Just throwing your work out into the ether and taking back from the ether whenever you need is how modding communities get so insane over time. No matter how you do it, you'll probably find your own people. Now the question is, how do you actually start your own game org with these people?
So we already covered this a little bit. It's starting with a smaller group of people. And so if, like with George Mason especially, they started with game design majors first. And so we talked about this earlier in that you can continue to grow it beyond people who are like more core focused. Like someone who is an English major, I said source control is something that I didn't understand before going to GADIG. Is the English major who's never touched Git going to know what source control is or what GitHub is? Probably not. And so starting with people who already have some of those foundational skills from their classes and then growing your circle so that you have people who can teach those skills to those newer members who are from outside of that game development sphere of influence.
And another thing I did want to bring up with coming up with that group, you're always going to have people of like different skill levels and different beliefs and backgrounds. So something that's like really important to keep in mind is just being open and trying new things. We have so many different type of people at GADIG, and you'll meet so many people who are similar to yourself, but you also get to meet a bunch of new people with a whole different set of beliefs. So I do think having that group comprised of like a diverse group of people is also something really helpful.
And then we also talked about documentation, right? We can do next. Yep. So documentation and communication, so ensuring that we've got transparency. There are different applications that you can use, such as Discord, Instagram, Skype.
I don't know if Skype exists anymore.
I think Skype is dead, and Slack. But
sorry.
Go ahead.
But realistically, you're just gonna end up using Discord. And yeah, so like Julie was mentioning earlier with that documentation, a big part of that is also managing scope. You don't want your project to get too big and then you won't be able to do it. There's always next time to iterate on it and be able to do more things. So keeping your scope is something very important. And the way we implement it personally is when you pitch a game, you'll have a minimum VIP. So we do minimum, medium, and stretch goal, which is minimum is what do we need for this to be considered a game and not just a screen. And then we go to medium, which is like what features can we add to make it like a little more fun and what we're kind of shooting for by the end of the semester. And then obviously we have stretch goals, which are pretty much what they sound like, where these would be nice to have, but we need to get all this stuff first before we reach there. And moving on, a big part of groups like these is there's a lot of motivation at the beginning where people are like, oh, I really want to make a game. This thing is awesome. And then deadlines start piling up. You have exams, you have classes, whatever else may be going on in your life. So a big part of it is keeping the group alive. And some ways you could do that are having like community events. We do a couple. We have our MAGFest trip. We do a game jam every semester, which I'll talk about a little bit more. We do game nights. We do analysis nights. And another thing to bring up is once people do leave the group, you should be inviting these people back to events. Like this whole panel is full of alumni. I'm the only current student, but making sure they still feel welcome. Okay. You know what? Anyways, making sure they still feel welcome and like checking in on your community, and yeah, that's a big part of it.
And another thing about keeping the group alive is that my leadership philosophy is that you should always be training up your replacements.
Yes.
And so our organization has grown over time. Like I was the first assistant sound director. So during my second semester in GADIG, they were like, oh, we're going to do assistant directors now. And I was like, oh, I'm going to apply. And so they ended up doing the vote and I got selected for it, which was awesome. And it was an empowering experience for me because it used to be just one person was in charge of each team. And with 200 people, can you have 5 people in charge? Is that realistic? It's really not, because you want to make sure that, does everyone know chain of command, or just generally like hierarchy? When you're leading people, you need to make sure your scope is realistic. Being in charge of 40 people is not realistic for one person. And so by having a smaller ratio between leadership and followers or team members, you're able to get more one-on-one feedback, like individual consideration. Like if someone misses a meeting, an assistant team director is able to say, hey, that person missed the meeting. I'm going to follow up and send them a message. Whereas the president, who has 200 people to keep track of, may not know that one specific person is missing. And that intellectual stimulation, knowing what's going to challenge specific team members versus like broadly, oh, the team will be challenged by this. People who are down getting in the nitty gritty with their team members will be able to speak to that better. And just in general, empowering those team members, giving them the tools to be successful because they already, in theory, have that experience and they were voted for to be in those leadership positions because they're able to bring that experience and that mentorship.
Exactly, yeah. Actually, I have a little bit to add too. When I became an officer, at first I wasn't really expecting that level of like leadership management, but I think when it came down to it, the most important thing to me was that in order to keep the group alive, you have to make sure that everybody wants to be there, right? Because as a group of students or hobbyists or people who are interested in even starting a business, you have to make sure everybody wants to be there. And the best way to do that is make sure that everybody has time to talk to each other and have moments where you're serious, but also have moments where you're just kind of having fun, right? GADIG's motto, actually, do we talk about GADIG's motto later?
Yeah, so GADIG's actual motto, it's the slogan we have under stuff, is we have fun making games. And I think it is very important to note, it is corny, but the fact that the word fun comes before make. It is very crucial that you are having fun with what you are doing, rather than, because it's like, so GADIG, all of GADIG games are free. People don't get paid. Your payment is your joy.
But yeah, so we do have a bit of time left, but before we move to questions, I'm going to leave you guys off with some practical advice. And this is going to be how to run a game jam using our game jam, JamFest. So what JamFest is, we have a couple of things going on. We have a game jam and we have a charity stream going on where we do all sorts of stuff. We play games, we have goals, we potentially tape myself to another post in our school. We do a lot. So what really this starts with is the beginning of the semester. So this is like 4 or 5 months earlier where we're like, we want to have this event and kind of starting broad and making your way towards like a finished project. So we'll be like, what time do we want to have this? Is everyone free? When are our breaks? And then we don't even think about the actual jam or the activities that are going to happen in it. That's the first step. Then we move down one step into, okay, what could our theme be? Like, how long do we want the jam? What, specific days will it be? Then you pick a theme. And if anyone else wants to like chime in, feel free.
You finish what you're saying and I'll chime in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from there, you go like one step further where it's like, okay, we have our theme, we have our jam, we're going to have it at this location. And then you start planning like, okay, we'll have the stream and we'll have these games on the stream. And then you actually host the event. So it's kind of just start here, end up here. And that's really important.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I'll say is once you know the date for your event, working your way back of the major milestones that you need to meet for specific decisions. Like when I ran JamFest, before COVID, we had to figure out what facilities could we use that would have food available for 24 hours. Because you need to be able to feed your people that are sitting working on games for 24 hours. We had to think about contracts. We had to sign contracts with the university to use facilities. We had to think about power. If people want to be able to use their computers, the facility that we were looking at did not have adequate power outlets along the walls. So we had to figure out how are we going to get all the power strips that we need? How are people going to be connected to the internet? Will they have internet access if they're a guest and they aren't a student of the university? And so making sure everyone has the resources and having that timeline, working from the date, creating milestones, working your way back to current day, and then making sure if that you don't meet those deadlines for each milestone, that you have a contingency in place to get it done as soon as possible, or else it could significantly impact, or you could cancel the event as a result.
Yeah, and definitely worth reiterating. If you're going to run an event like that, make sure you hit those goals on time, because there's definitely been some experiences at GAMFest where it's like we don't know until day of that the university has allowed us to use a space for 24 hours continuously. That can get a little scary, so definitely stay on top of it. And if all things go well, by the time the event starts, that's the moment where it's like, okay, everything's already fallen into place. So, yeah.
Time constraints. That reminds me, we do have finite time, and while we could get into all of the intricacies of creating a game or running all these events, we literally don't have enough time for that. So just ask us whatever you want. Q&A time.
I guess we can start
over here.
Right to left.
Yes. What's your question?
So we have a wide variety of different eras of GADIG here, and I want to ask, what do you think the future is going to look like for organizations?
So the question is, what is the future of GADIG?
Well, I'm glad you asked, 'cause that's what we're figuring. I'm kidding. So what GADIG is looking like right now, it looks like we're expanding at a consistent rate. So now that we have a lot of people, we have a lot of talent, we have really good games, it kind of just goes from there to how can we get our games out to the people. So we do events like that. We do MAGFest. We went to District Arcade this year, which was a lot of fun. And with all of that outreach comes, more positions where we need people to help us do that. So this semester, not only do we have a social media position, we also have interns for positions like that, where everyone kind of has a different network, and everyone has different skills. So kind of just reaching out and then getting to meet more people and getting our games out there for people to enjoy. That's kind of what it's looking like right now.
And then, yes.
Hi, this is really awesome. I run my own video game studio, and I started teaching. Thank you. I started teaching at a Bristol Community College up in Massachusetts 2 years ago. They recently made community college free, so our game design program is completely full. We have so many people. I don't want to market this, but come to Bristol. This is amazing, and we have so many students that want to do so much more, and I try to offer internships through my studio, but there's only so much that I can do. Is this is there a way that I as a professor can advocate for this, or do the students need to start the process? I'm sure it's different for every college, but this is something that students want to make games. I just don't know who can instigate it.
If you have a student that's really a self-starter that you think is more than capable of starting the organization, then encourage that student to do that. If you wanted to do research with your university's policies of what is required of a student organization, they probably need some kind of faculty advisor. So when you're talking to that student who's a self-starter, then say, I can serve as your faculty advisor. That's one less thing you have to worry about, but I'm here to support you and give you whatever tools you need to be successful. And then you could always communicate with your classroom or your different classes and saying, hey, we've got a club starting up, and then post a flyer up on your board and say, join whenever you want. So you can also help with that marketing process to support your students.
I will say also to add on to that. Oh, wait, are you?
So I'm sorry, I was, for the back of the room that did not hear, Bristol, Massachusetts Community College is offering free education for community college. And so the question was, how do I start an organization like this at my community college? Sorry, I didn't say the question earlier. Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm trying to remember now. I'm
sorry.
I think it's actually just gone, so.
Okay.
So I can jump in there. We talked a little bit as well, just the university base, as well as doing some of the online stuff. There is, outside of just the university, branching out students to be if it isn't something that can be immediately here, if all the paperwork, getting that set up, there is always people online making games and wanting more people to help them make games. So being able to encourage potentially looking into jams, doing some small projects there, And that can almost, like, we talked about that almost as its own avenue, but it could be something that runs kind of concurrent, right? Like, it's as this more bureaucracy part is happening on more of an admin level, you can still have them make games. So,
Also, I did just remember what I was going to say. This is an interesting position because for GADIG, when it started, it was also pretty much the start of the game degree at GMU as well. So there wasn't a ton of institutional support, at least in the beginning.
Yeah,
So.
I'm one of 3 professors.
Oh, wow.
All right. So this sounds like it's going to be a learning process for everybody. But I think if you pitch the idea to your students, I feel like there's probably going to be a couple takers. And I definitely recommend just sticking with them. And it's a learning process for everyone, not just the students, but the teachers as well. So.
And they
yeah.
they could also start with smaller scope projects like modding something. Like I modded Amnesia Dark Descent for one of my school projects. So your students could do that too. Modding is a great thing to do, as Nicole has said.
Right. Some more stuff in the back.
Yes.
Just to add on to that, I'm not sure how much more, but you have created the Bethesda engine. You have a copy of their game. They have their creation kit. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Creation kits for their various games are free and available on Steam. You just need a copy of the game, the creation kit, and you're off on the races.
Yep.
So I'm going to say it again in the microphone. Nothing against you. Bethesda has creation kits, so if you have access to the game and the creation kits, then you are able to modify the game for free.
Yep.
Back to front.
yeah, we'll go from the back.
Make our
Fellow
way
with
up.
the glasses. That's,
That doesn't help.
yeah.
my bad.
Yeah.
Can you go into more detail on how to use like Discord if you like don't have a community? Because I've tried it, and my
I can get this.
experience is that everyone has their own ideas, so it's just lots of bickering and people leaving and not a lot getting done. And your ideas are done. They want to make your action adventure an RPG, and you're like, no.
So,
Restate the question.
If
So
I
the-
may.
oh yeah, go for it.
So this, unfortunately,
What was the question?
The question was, if there are a lot of ideas peoples out there that you want to connect with other developers, but people who will just work on one idea together, what can you do to synchronize people using Discord to do one project?
So, as someone in the Friday Night Funkin' community, I have seen a lot of this. Like, so many major modding projects just fall apart because everyone wants to add stuff on and on. Like, sometimes stuff doesn't even get started because they're all arguing in the ideas phase, like you said. Or sometimes projects just end up falling apart later because people have added on too much to an already pretty big project. Now, you're not going to like this answer, and I don't even like this answer either, but it kind of fixes itself as people grow up. Like, inevitably, people learn that execution is inherently more valuable than 100 ideas on the table. So you'll end up with more creators than quote-unquote ideas guys at the end of the day.
And one practical way that we try to solve it is we do have like the pitch system where it's like, hey, this is what I want to make. This is how I would propose how to make it. And then kind of just going from there. And just reminding like your community that like, hey, this isn't the only thing we're going to ever do. There will be a next project. There will be like another opportunity for you to present your game. You can learn from this one. And, you know, just kind of like having that vision, but also allowing people to like still come up with some new ideas.
So we had another one right here. We were just working our way down. There's like 4 questions in a row. So
And then we'll go here.
and we'll go to you next. Yes. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, so 2 things. First off, can you guys talk about the 4 teams in GADIG?
Oh yeah. So GADIG, I was asking a little bit about structure with the different teams. So we break GADIG kind of into 4 major disciplines. We have the design team, we have the sound team, we have the art team, and we have the programming team. People like programming? Yeah. So within those groups, given our scale, we actually have a bunch of subgroups in there. So like design is not 50 designers in a big circle. We break that into 3 major teams. We have our narrative branch, we have our mechanics branch, and then we have, as it is referred to in GADIG's law, Sparkle team, which is making the game feel good. And I know if you want to talk a little about audio. So.
About audio? Yeah, so sound is unique because its membership like fluctuates a lot. So like I've seen the team be as small as like 8 people, but it's also gotten as big as like 20. So the structure kind of ends up being, at the beginning of the semester, we asked who wants to write music, and then like everybody raises their hand, and then who wants to write sound effects, and like half the people raise their hand, and then we say it doesn't matter, you're all working on sound effects, and everyone's collaborating on music. So that's kind of how sound team is structured.
Nicole, you want to talk art?
I mean, what is there to say? We make the art. People tell us
make
to
the art.
make an asset. We draw it. That's it.
And programming does they have like a task system with like priority. And they make the game.
They make the game. That's their job. But speaking a little bit more about
They
that.
they use Hack and Plan, or at least they used to.
Now we use GitHub projects.
Okay, you use GitHub projects, and then they have a list of tasks and features that are being implemented into the game. Any bugs, all of those get compiled into one list, and then the different programming team members can implement the features or debug the bugs based off of the list and the prioritization of those problems in the game.
Do you have something to add?
Oh yeah, part 2, yeah.
Yeah. Also, could you talk more about like the importance of the culture, the traditions, and like also explain what the clap was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so GADIG really enjoys thinking about its own history when we're talking about the question, when asking with the question of just talking about some of the culture of GADIG. A big part of that is, so the actual club hours run for 1 hour a week. That is the mandated time for people to be there is 2 hours a week. I said a typo. So that's actually like in practice, the time that you are morally obligated to lock in is not a lot. And that leaves a lot of time for a remainder of the week for people to be very active in like our Discord community or running weekly or like relatively like bi-weekly events. Additionally, there's JamFest, which is a big part of just like, we want everyone to do something together and get their little groups together. Because a lot of what the culture of GADIG is a moment for being like, oh, yeah, I'm like a person outside of my task I got. So one of the things that GADIG loves doing that happened at the start of this is every single meeting, this is from before my time, in ancient days of GADIG, they started this tradition where at the start of every meeting, the whole team, everyone in the room does one clap, a singular clap together. Someone else
I
want to talk?
started that. I am not ancient.
Yeah, ancient times. Anyways, kidding. But yeah, adding on to that, that's not really something you can like force. You can't force someone to be funny or some people to find things funny. It kind of just is a result of having all of these different people and all of these different events and kind of just people talking.
I will also say that you saw different images for the different teams as they came up. You saw like the shrimp, the sound shrimp. You saw the duck for programming. Like we have tried to.
Wow, that's really ugly.
Oops.
Plug it in.
I think it's unplugged.
Yep. I know.
So imagine on screen
so
like a duck.
Yeah, so we have. There we go.
Yeah.
So part of the reason why I created the sound shrimp was because I wanted the sound team to come together and be proud of something together. And so we created the mascot of the sound shrimp. And so anytime when I was assistant sound director, whenever the sound director would post in the Discord server, I would react with the shrimp. Because I wanted to show my leader that I was actively paying attention. I acknowledged the message, and I was like, yes, I understand. Shrimp. And so over time, the other teams actually developed their own mascots. And so all the teams are gathered together around this mascot for their team. They are proud of it. And so I am proud that my legacy of the sound shrimp still lives today. But
Hey, okay, so we've got time for one more question.
one or two more, yeah.
At the current rate, it's
Depend-
definitely just one.
Yeah. Okay.
the back.
In the back, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm an alumni of Mason. Is there a way to get involved post-college? You know, all those years we have to spend working afterwards. Not as fun as college, but we still like to stay because I'm a local game dev.
Yeah. So
Avenue for that.
before my time, they were deleting everyone off of the Discord server. So I
Talking about
instituted the
GADIG
policy
culture.
of we will have everyone who wants a member tag to get the member tag, and then alumni can also be part of the Discord server. So you can connect with us after, and we can add you to it.
We do also have some honorary members, or like honorary members. They just help us make the game, but they don't necessarily have to be students. They're just some people that do want to come back and work on whatever they want to work on.
And we as alumni do jams too, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Is it a quick one?
Yeah, we got time for that.
I do IT for a company in the games industry, but I've always had an interest to start like a small studio after seeing how people can be treated on the inside. In your opinion, what's the best reason to start a game studio?
Well, that's a good question.
So the question was, what is the best reason to start your own studio?
An insatiable thirst for making art.
I mean, there's any number of reasons. Like for me, I do my own indie game development aside from my full-time job. At the end of the day, I need to eat and I need to have a place to live. And so, like, I haven't, like, the games that I have published, I've made no money from. I have made negative money from because Steam took $100 from me to post on their website or on, you know what I'm talking about, it's the Steam page. So it depends on how much bandwidth you have. Like if you want to go all in on doing an indie studio, know the risks associated with it. We are not saying quit your job and start a game studio right now. If you can balance doing a game studio plus your IT job, then you could totally try doing that. I worked on like the GT10 10th anniversary project for Game Theory over the course of 11 months. And that was with like 5 people from across the world. And so we were able to make a really cool game. And it was played on their YouTube channel celebrating 10 years. And that was like, oh, that was so cool. But we didn't make any money from it. So just know about the financial viability of what you're making. And do a lot of marketing if you're going to do marketing.
Yes. Yeah, I can.
Got
add
2
on to that,
minutes.
too. Yeah, 2 minutes. All right. It's an investment. It's a time investment. It's a personal investment. It's a big financial investment. So it's risky. It's a very risky thing to do. Personally, how like we started our studio is it started as a school project, right? And then we got to the end of our degree, and we were like, we actually really liked working together, and we haven't finished it yet. So we should finish it together. And that became a financial investment for us where we weren't spending money before. So that was a lot to consider when we first started our team. But also, as we continued developing the game, like me personally, I took on a part-time job in addition to working like probably like 10 hours a week on Necromancer. And I also have my own game I've been working on slowly on the side as well. So it's definitely a matter of balance because if you're trying to create like a new studio that could become like the next AAA, that is like a lot of investment. Like that is, if you have to be 100% sure you want to do that. But if you just want to make games and you want to make games with people you care about, that the barrier to entry can actually be pretty low depending on what you do. So it's just worth keeping in mind.
Thank you.
So that's going to be it for our presentation. If you do have any additional... Okay. If you have any additional questions, we'll be available in the hallway to chat more.
And also, if you guys are looking to like connect, hold on, not yet. You're not allowed to leave. If you are looking to connect with like a bunch of passionate people, or you kind of just want to like, you know, chat with our members, feel free to just ask me at the end, and I'll get you on our Discord server.
Yeah, right. Thanks everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.